Alright guys, Resident Evil 3. That's what we're playing today. And no, not the new one, the original classic. And you can tell this is the original game because... Man, when was the last time I listened to that? Actually, I think I know. I think it was actually just over a year ago when I replayed the original Resident Evil 2 before the remake came out for that one. And here we are now. So, history repeats itself. Okay, so this is how you know you're really getting off on the right foot with this game. You select new game and you're immediately put into the dilemma of do you play on easy or hard, which basically translates to do you want to be pampered or do you want to get destroyed. Now I'm pretty sure I mentioned this before, but this was like one of the first video games I ever played back when I was a kid. Like I was 4 or 5 years old. I'd watch my mother play these older Resident Evil games, and this one was her favorite. And one day she had to check on something in the kitchen, so she gave me the controller and was like, "All right, I watched her play this for hours before, so I was ready, man." So I'm pretty sure I walked through like maybe 2 rooms and then got killed by Nemesis. And it was then that I realized that video games are pretty damn awesome. And also my mom's pretty awesome too. But anyway, I played this a lot on my own after that, and I think one of the main reasons why this game was actually such a good stepping stone was that easy mode just hands you so much firepower like right out the gate. Like you start off with the assault rifle, you get the medical case with the 3 first aid sprays just right in your inventory right from the start, and then you get to the item box and you find it's just stocked, man. You got the magnum, you got the shotgun, you got plenty of extra ammo. You have like 2 extra clips of assault rifle ammo, and then a handgun with like a full maxed out box of handgun bullets. It's almost cheating, but yeah. But I mean, we're doing hard mode, obviously.
It all began as an ordinary day in September. An ordinary day in Raccoon City. A city controlled by Umbrella. No one dared to oppose them, and that lack of strength would ultimately lead to their destruction. I suppose they had to suffer the consequences of their actions, but there would be no forgiveness. If only they had had the courage to fight. It's true that once the wheels of justice begin to turn, nothing can stop them. Nothing. It was Raccoon City's last chance, and my last chance. My last escape.
This is Chopper Delta, preparing to drop off at area E95070. Over.
What are they?
Waiting orders. Over. All units proceed to Richmond and Victoria. All right.
Let's do it. Let's move. Go, 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 go. Fire. Come and get it. Son of a. Don't give up. Too many of them. Don't hold back. Go. Where are they? Where did they come from?
This is my, last escape. Localizations can be rough, I get it, but that always gets a chuckle out of me. And it happens like every time you load up a save too, which is probably going to happen a lot because I probably will die a lot in this playthrough. Now this date drop here is pretty important for letting players know that Resident Evil 3 does in fact take place chronologically before the events of Resident Evil 2, at least for like the first 2/3 of the game. And I've honestly never really considered Nemesis to be a proper sequel to Resident Evil 2 anyway. I've always seen it as more of a companion piece, with Code Veronica being the actual sequel to Resident Evil 2, in my opinion. So on hard mode, ammo is pretty tight here in the first bit of the game, and it's going to be even tighter soon because the goal with this playthrough is to actually do all of the optional fights against Nemesis to get all the good easy drops. And the first real hurdle is this door, which has like 5 zombies that come out of it, but at the bottom is actually the lighter oil that we'll need to progress, and also the shotgun, so it's kind of necessary to either take some damage or use up some ammo here. Thankfully you get a handful of herbs along the way, which makes taking some damage here a bit more manageable than wasting your ammo. And the next couple areas have enough room that we can hopefully squeeze by and avoid wasting any more ammo or health items than we really need to, because we're going to need them for fighting Nemesis later.
Get away!
So right here, I'm pretty sure the game wants you to help Brad kill the zombie, but I'm actually more concerned with getting these bullets, plus he'll kill it on his own anyway.
Brad, hang in there. Why isn't someone doing something about this?
I didn't know you were still alive, Jill. The police aren't trained for this kind of situation. What could they do? Listen, he's coming for us. We're both gonna die.
What are you saying?
You'll see. He's after STARS members. There's no escape.
Now for those of you who maybe haven't played these older RE games and have no idea who this even is, Brad is the STARS Bravo team pilot, and at the start of the first game he basically flies off and abandons the rest of the team, which forces them to take refuge in the infamous Spencer mansion. But he does kind of make a bit of a redemption when he comes back and rescues the team just before it explodes and drops the rocket launcher that kills the tyrant in the first game. And now there's a new tyrant specifically hunting down the surviving STARS members, so great. We soon get to this room and these zombies break through this barricade, and the idea here is that you're supposed to shoot this red barrel and take out a big chunk of them, but this game hates me and decides that I'm actually aiming at the zombie behind the barrel. So yeah, trying to shoot various explosive objects in this game never seems to work out for me, as you'll see later on. Alright, so we're coming up on our first encounter with the titular Nemesis, and it's time to prepare. So, you don't have a whole lot available to you at this point of the game, but what you do have should be enough if you were scrounging enough. As long as you didn't waste too much ammo or health items getting here, you should have enough to take them down. I do mix together some of the gunpowder A that I've kind of saved up to make some more handgun bullets, just to be sure. And I am breaking the shotgun, just in case as well. And yeah, I do know about the enhanced ammo, but I don't really like using it, and I'll explain a bit more later on.
Jill!
Brad!
We've gotta... Jill! Help!
Man, I just love this scene, cause like, alright, so Brad comes stumbling in, right? Nemesis jumps right in between Brad and Jill, and Jill just stands there and just watches her friend and colleague get impaled through the face. Like, she even looks away too, like out of horror or disgust or something, and and after that Nemesis just tosses the corpse away, and she's all like,
Brad?
Like, yeah, lady, I'm sure he's just fine. He'll walk it off. It'll be like the story of Phineas Gage that we learned about in like high school, which has been forever burned into my memory because of how much I'd wince to even fathom having something go through my head only for me to actually survive it. But enough of the real life history. It's time for us to fight with the monster. You know, for a first attempt, that wasn't so bad. Alright, moving on, second attempt. So, straight away, if you wait until the text prompt starts to flash red here before you choose to fight, Jill will actually automatically dodge Nemesis' first attack. Unfortunately, pretty much every time I do this, his next attack is always to rush you, which is pretty hard to avoid, so I'm honestly not even sure if this is actually worth doing or not, but I've done it every time, so why stop now? Taking down Nemesis for the first time is a bit tricky considering the limited amount of ammo and health that you probably have at this point, but the tactics for dealing with him actually aren't too difficult to master. He only has a few basic attacks at this point of the game. He'll walk slowly toward you and then either swing and punch you or he'll grab you. Both attacks are done with his left arm, which is the one covered with the black sleeve. So you can kite him and always try to dodge past his right arm, which has more of the flesh exposed, and you'll usually dodge his attacks. The issues come into play when he suddenly decides to pick up speed and rush you, and he'll punch or grab you if he does this. These are much harder to dodge unless you're already moving or have mastered the tricky timing of the dodge mechanic that always triggers by accident for me, honestly. In any case, consider yourself lucky if he just hits you. If he grabs you, you're kinda screwed. If you button mash enough, you can get Nemesis to drop you. Despite how many controllers I've probably broken over the years doing this, I've never managed a consistent way of getting out of his grip and chalk it down to just luck. More than likely, he'll throw you to the ground where you'll have to button mash to get up in time before he chain grabs you again and repeats the whole process until he kills you or you manage to break free in time. So a bit of shoot and run with a whole heaping of luck, and taking down the first time isn't too bad, and he'll drop the first set of parts for the Eagle handgun. Now I mentioned before that you can actually mix gunpowder enough in this game to make enhanced bullets for the handgun and the shotgun. However, I prefer using the handgun and shotgun that you get by killing Nemesis enough times in the optional encounters, and those only use the standard ammunition, so I tend not to bother with enhanced ammunition. If you loot Brad's body, you can get his STARS card, which you'll need to figure out a password in the evidence room to get the key for the STARS office. If you didn't get his card, you'll have to make an extra detour in the RPD to get Jill's card because for some reason, Jill's doesn't have hers on her, even though I'd imagine you'd probably keep those sorts of things on you at all times as a policewoman, but I don't know. Anyways, in the West offices, you can actually find Marvin, but the game mistakenly tells you that he's been fatally wounded, which isn't true because he's still alive enough to give Leon or Claire the keycard to unlock the doors in the RPD in Resident Evil 2, which has yet to take place yet, so I don't know. Also, I swear there's supposed to be a box of shotgun shells in this room with Marvin, but they're just not here. That's a huge blow to my ammo stock that I was actually counting on, so that sucks. And that's sort of a big underlying thing with Resident Evil 3. It'll randomize things throughout the game in certain areas, from the placement of non-key items like ammo and health to even what types of enemies will spawn in certain rooms. On one hand, it's nice to be able to keep subsequent playthroughs feeling different every time, but it also sucks when you're expecting one thing and it's not there. So one of the key items that we're actually here for is Jill's lockpick, which not sure why the Master of Unlocking Things wouldn't have the lockpick on her at all times, along with her STARS card, but you'll also actually find the Magnum or the grenade launcher in this weapon cabinet here. I personally find the grenade launcher to be far more useful in this game because of how powerful freeze rounds are for dealing with Nemesis, so I'm pretty glad that I got this here instead of later on in the power plant. As you're making your way back downstairs, you hear some glass breaking and you're thinking, great, more zombies, except nope. So the second optional fight with Nemesis, you have a few more tricks up your sleeve this time, seeing as you'll now be armed with either the grenade launcher or the Magnum that you got from the STARS office, but you can also use a bit of cheese to get some free shots on Nemesis. If you lead him back to the room where you found Marvin, who's mysteriously disappeared now, you'll find that when Nemesis attempts to follow you in, he'll often get stuck on this cabinet or whatever. He doesn't remain stuck for very long, so you'll often have to run out and back into the room to reset this exploit, but I mean, I'll take every advantage I can get. We kill him a second time and get the rest of the Eagle handgun parts to make the Eagle 6.0. This uses standard handgun ammunition, and as far as I can tell, the Eagle has a noticeably higher fire rate than your standard handgun, is a little bit stronger at taking out zombies, and also can critically hit enemies, making their heads pop off, which is always nice. Great gun. It's why I don't really bother with making enhanced ammo, and you'll still find standard ammunition, and you'll have to also juggle that along with your enhanced ammo, and I just find that too cumbersome in my opinion. After unlocking a new path with the lockpick, you'll have quite a few rooms to go through, including rooms with some dogs and the new Drain Demos, I believe that's how you say that, enemies, and you'll eventually come to your first non-linear section of the game, where you can actually choose which order you'd like to visit certain key areas to get key items. I always prefer to visit the restaurant first, but you can go to the news building instead if you'd like. You meet up with Carlos at this point, and before you can really get acquainted, Nemesis finds you again. And you can actually get a freebie kill on Nemesis here by hiding in the kitchen, or a similar choice is given to you if you visit the news building first, I believe.
What's that?
Calm down, lady. I'm no zombie. My name's Carlos, Corporal of Umbrella's Biohazard Countermeasure Force. What's your name?
Jill, did you just say you belong to Umbrella's army?
Yeah, we came all the way out here to save you civilians, but the mission went bad the minute we landed.
Wait, how did he find me? Over here!
Are you crazy? You could have barbecued both of us!
You'll be able to pick up the medical case here, which is a item that holds 3 first aid sprays in 1 item slot, which is pretty neat. Also, you get 3 first aid sprays for free, which will be super helpful. Nemesis will begin stalking you again as soon as you leave the restaurant, but since we already killed him earlier, there's really not any reason to do so again, as he won't drop another item even if we do, so it's time to just run to the news building. We can pick up the next gem here, and using the one we got from the evidence room from the RPD earlier, we can open up the next area. Following that path, you'll eventually come across the cable car.
You're one of the survivors from the rescue team, right? I just ran into your teammate, Carlos.
How did a girl like you manage to survive?
Hey, I'm no ordinary civvy. I'm a member of STARS.
Stars? You mean the RPD Special Force Team?
Hey, is someone wounded back there? Oh, this looks bad.
They're coming. Get ready. Fire. Fire! Stay together!
Calm down. You're safe now. Everything is gonna be okay.
So Jill, did you decide to help us out? It looks like we're the only ones who survived. We should work together.
No, we can't trust her.
Why? But Sergeant, we need her help. Our unit's down to you, me, and Lieutenant Mikhail. That's it. And Mikhail's hurt bad. If we don't cooperate, we won't be walking away from this mission.
Fine. Then let's go over our plan. We're moving to the clock tower area, which is the designated landing zone for the extraction chopper. Once we get there and give the signal, the chopper will fly in and pull us out.
That's a lot of ground to cover. I don't think we can make it on foot.
The main problem we have is that the landing zone is cut off from here by the fire. So we have no choice but to use this cable car to navigate through it. Fortunately, we can also use it as a moving shield to get us through the worst areas.
That works for me. Good plan, sir.
Okay, people, let's get moving.
Jill, put this on.
Once you're acquainted with the rest of the mercenaries, Carlos gives you a harness which will allow you to carry 2 more inventory slots, which will be super handy. And now you'll be in the next non-linear section of the game. There will be 3 key areas that you need to visit and get all the items to fix the cable car, and you can tackle these in any order. I decided to go to the gas station first since it's closest. I think that since I went to the restaurant first, that means you'll find Carlos here instead of Nikolai. Although conversely, if you went to the news building first and met Carlos there, you should find Nikolai here. After you scavenge what you can inside, you'll get this brief FMV, which doesn't include Carlos, even though he'll pop back up after we go back to the game's graphics, which is kind of funny.
Ouch, my ears are ringing. We both should be deaf by now. Okay, I'm gonna scrounge up some equipment. There might not be any at our destination.
After this, I remember that there should be an optional cutscene that I used to miss all the time back when I played as a kid, and decided to head back to the cable car even though I'm still missing most of the parts. It's pretty inefficient to do this, but heading back will actually trigger this cutscene.
Don't come any closer!
Mikhail, do you have some kind of death wish?
My people, they were wiped out by these monsters. I can't stop just because I'm wounded.
But can't you see those monsters are also the victims of Umbrella?
Are you accusing me of taking it out on them? You don't seem to understand something. We're not really involved with the company. There's no reason for any of us to take responsibility for this mess.
I know that. And right now, that's the only reason why I'm trying to cooperate with you.
Sorry. I feel so useless.
Don't. You fought hard and have the wounds to prove it.
But I'm still alive. My men aren't.
Don't think about that now. Just rest.
And I like this cutscene. It gives a bit more characterization for both Jill and Mikhail, and it adds to a decision that Mikhail ends up making a bit later on in the game, and is worth seeing in my opinion. And I seriously didn't even know this cutscene existed until after I've been playing this game for like a decade, so yeah, this was pretty well hidden and I just never managed to come back here before I had all the parts. I decided to head to the clinic next, and outside you can find this crank. Pick it up, you want that, trust me. Inside, you just barely miss Nikolai executing someone who's turning, whose name is apparently Murphy in the credits.
Wait!
What did you do?
I had no choice. He was about to turn into a zombie. It would have been a threat, so I eliminated it.
But he was still conscious, wasn't he?
He was as good as dead. And it took fewer bullets to kill him now than it would have if he had transformed.
You turn on this TV to figure out the password to this back room that you need to get into, and you type it into this PC keyboard, which is in alphabetical order for some reason. I should mention that there's actually quite a bit of gunpowder that's kind of randomly placed across all of these key areas, and it's possible to have 6 of them all spawn in this back room, which is obnoxious, but thankfully they didn't spawn here this time and instead spawn at the gas station and the power plant. Except that it's actually not a good thing, because I know there's a Nemesis fight in between me and the power plant, and now I know that I'm not going to have that gunpowder to make ammo for that fight, so that's kind of unfortunate. Anyways, as we leave, a bunch of zombies break in, Nikolai dies, and now we have to fight our way out, which honestly isn't so bad. You will have to burn through quite a bit of ammo though. As mentioned before, Nemesis will show up here, blocking your path. I quickly dip into the save room to drop a save and prepare some ammo. The most effective weapon to really use against Nemesis is freeze rounds. And since I already have the grenade launcher at this point, I decide to mix up some gunpowder and load those up. I walk out the room expecting a fight and he's not there. But I actually do want to fight him for the gun part, so I actually have to go around room to room trying to get him to spawn, and he just doesn't want to. Oh, there he is. But yeah, freeze rounds are super effective against him, and this goes by much better than our previous fights, and there are the first parts for the M37 shotgun. Before we head to the power plant, we can use that crank and do a bit of backtracking. In the alley behind the bar where you met Brad earlier, you can use that crank to open up this grate and find 18 grenade rounds, which will be very handy indeed. But furthermore, you can go and visit the warehouse that you started off in. You'll run into this woman who screams for help, but no matter what you do or how fast you are, you'll always find her dead in front of the entrance to the warehouse. And upon entering the warehouse, the fellow survivor who refused to leave with you, Dario, can be heard being munched on in the corner. I just want the gunpowder that was in his trailer, so I grab it and decide to make out like a bandit completely unscathed. We've only got one place left to visit, so now we head to the power plant to pick up the fuse for the cable car. I believe you can get Nemesis to spawn here if you come here before the clinic, but only if you choose to escape through the emergency exit. I've already fought him, so I increase the voltage and watch these zombies pop. You'll also be able to get into this room to get either the Magnum or the grenade launcher, depending on whichever one you didn't pick up back in the STARS office. Now that we have everything we need to fix up the cable car, I do know that on our way to the cable car, we'll have another run-in with our old friend Nemesis. Turns out I have quite a bit of gunpowder in my item box, so whip up some more freeze rounds and I'm feeling pretty confident about this encounter. And that's the chain grab I was talking about earlier. That's really cool. So our second attempt turned out much better, and we got the second half of the parts for the M37 shotgun, which is pretty awesome. On the way back to the cable car, there's one more obstacle, however, which is an earthquake that traps you underground with the grave digger. You don't actually have to fight it at this point, and instead just need to properly press the switches to lower the emergency ladder and escape. At the cable car, finally, Jill breaks the news that Nikolai's dead, and Carlos operates the cable car, and we're off. A noise in the back sends us to investigate, and we find our old pal Nemesis is back.
Mikhail! Hey, what's going on in the back?
Mikhail!
Jill, get out of the cable car now!
Mikhail, wait, don't!
Get out of here! Hurry!
Mikhail.
Seriously, what a badass. I expect really good things from the remake version of this scene. With Mikhail and the Nemesis gone, Carlos loses control of the cable car, and we're given another choice that has an indirect effect on the first mandatory fight against Nemesis. If you pull the emergency brake, you'll enter the clock tower from the front, but Carlos will appear at the start of the Nemesis fight later to shoot his rocket launcher and explode it. If you jump out the window and abandon Carlos to crash and die on his own, You'll enter the clock tower from the back and will later run into Carlos, who gives you some freeze rounds, but will show up to the Nemesis fight too late to help. Personally, the freeze rounds are invaluable, so I choose that option. Inside this main lobby area, you can find the mine thrower, which is basically the grenade launcher but worse. The clock tower isn't particularly large and there's only a handful of rooms, but it also has two of the worst rooms in the whole game, the first being this one. Seriously, spiders can screw off. Flame rounds are particularly effective at dealing with them, but for some reason I thought I could use these explosives on the walls to kill them, and obviously the game doesn't cooperate and I get poisoned, so 2 thumbs up. There's this cute little puzzle up here in the clock tower, and I swear there's supposed to be some grade A gunpowder up here, but instead I just find mine thrower rounds, which just make me feel ecstatic. You have to make your way back down the tower to solve one last puzzle before you can leave, but before you do, so you can use the cord here to get another freebie kill on Nemesis. Since this is the 6th optional down of Nemesis, I'll get another medical pack with first aid sprays. Otherwise, you can use the spotlight to knock him off the tower. You won't get a free item, but he won't stalk you. But honestly, it's not even worth using the light. He can't follow you through most of the rooms in the clock tower anyway, so just get the freebie kill. Downstairs, you can unlock the door to the worst room in the game. This guy here in the corner who's all webbed up, who probably got the worst death out of everyone in the game, has some grenade launcher rounds with him, so don't miss those. And in this room, you'll be treated to one of those puzzles that I swear changes every time I play, and I just sort of randomly place things until I solve it by accident, rather than actually use my brain to think of the logical solution. The idea is to get the middle clock to strike 12, and depending on which bead you place into which clock, it moves the time forward or back. I don't know. I don't have the brain capacity for this right now. Once you solve this and get the gear, it's time to head back up the tower. Once the bell is ringing, you can exit the tower and you beat the game, except not quite.
We're saved. Down here! It's finally over. Huh? No!
Can I just say, I love how they animated Jill's frustration over seeing the helicopter blow up here. Like, I don't know why, it just seems so out of place and it's hilarious to me. But anyway, this is the first mandatory fight with the Nemesis. We fought him plenty of times before, 4 times already, so we have the experience, but more importantly, we have the frickin' mine thrower. So since we opted to get the freeze rounds from Carlos, Nemesis has a fully loaded rocket launcher to use against us. And I do a pretty good enough job at baiting and dodging the rockets, until I don't. I like to point out that just a minute ago we saw a rocket from Nemesis do this. But Jill can survive this thing head on. I mean, people give Chris shit because he punched a boulder into a lava pit in an active volcano that one time, but Jill is the real superhuman here. Anyways, for some reason I really want to use this mine thrower against Nemesis instead of the freeze rounds that I have stocked up at this point. The way the mine thrower works is that it'll shoot out seekers that attach themselves to the target and explode after a delay. You can't reload it until all the seekers explode, and the explosions can damage you if you're too close. It's an awful weapon, but apparently it was cool enough that someone thought to include it in Resident Evil 4 instead of, you know, a grenade launcher. Once you damage Nemesis enough, he decides to stumble away into the fire for some reason, and Jill collapses after him. Carlos makes his late entrance by now, and he's all like,
What have I done? I'm sorry, Jill.
like it was his fault Jill's about to die right now.
October 1st, night. I woke up to the sound of falling rain. I can't believe I'm still alive. Carlos?
It looks like our roles have been reversed from when we originally met, huh? Don't worry, Jill. This chapel is safe.
I've been infected by the virus, haven't I?
Hey! Take it easy.
I'm okay. Don't feel any pain. But that's what bothers me. If I can't feel anything, then what does that mean?
Don't give up, Jill. I'll take care of you. Whatever you do, don't let that virus beat you.
Jill awakes on the night of October 1st, signaling that by now Leon and Claire have already made their way into and out of the city, and now the rest of the game will be the events taking place after Resident Evil 2. Jill's been infected with the virus, but Carlos is hell-bent on saving her. He's so determined to do so that he waited a couple of days to even start trying to find a way to save her, so yeah, real swell guy. So now we get to control Carlos for a spell. He's armed with the fully loaded assault rifle, which is actually surprisingly effective for dealing with most enemies in the game. It has this tendency to kind of stun lock just about any enemy, which will prevent them from attacking you even if they're right in your face, and you'll just end up killing them before they can manage to attack you, which is pretty neat. As Carlos, you'll be able to push aside this bell that Jill wasn't strong enough to do so earlier, and you can make your way into the hospital where you'll meet the Hunter Beta, which is more red than the other hunters. Thankfully, the assault rifle is pretty good at killing them. So similar to the clock tower, the hospital is a pretty small area, and the goal here is to find and create a vaccine for the T-Riders to give to Jill. Along the way, you'll learn that Nikolai is still alive and is a traitor claiming to be a supervisor. You'll also run into this mercenary whose name is Tyrell from the credits, and he'll blow himself up attempting to kill Nikolai.
Don't shoot! No! Nikolai? You're still alive?
You saw what happened?
What's going on?
I'm one of the supervisors. That's all you need to know.
Wait!
If you go to the basement first, I don't think you'll run into Nikolai, but you'll run into Tyrell and only get a warning about Nikolai from him, as he's also a supervisor and knows that Nikolai is out to kill him. And he ends up getting killed by some trap when he opens the safe or something, I don't know. I always go to this floor first and witness this version of the cutscene, so it's been a while since I've seen the last one. Miraculously, Carlos is able to create the vaccine, and predictably, after draining the water, the Hunter Gamma will be able to break through, but thankfully they can't open doors and you'll be on your merry way. As you're about to leave the hospital, you'll find that Nikolai has actually set some explosives and you'll have to leave before an FMV showing the hospital being demolished plays. And I swear most of the FMVs in this game are just there to show things getting blown up, which is totally cool with me. On your way back to Jill, you'll find that Nemesis is still alive, obviously, but Carlos decides to pass the baton to Jill after administering the vaccine.
Hey, are you okay?
Yes. Barely. What's going on?
No way! That monster just doesn't give up!
What? I thought we killed that thing!
They come up with this really weird reasoning for why Nemesis won't just break into the chapel and kill Jill right now by saying this.
He's playing with us.
Like, yeah, okay, lady. This bioengineered weapon that's sole purpose is to eliminate any surviving STARS members just wants to have some fun before he kills you. But, joking aside, this is probably the worst form of Nemesis that you can fight. He's grown out his tentacles and can now pull you to him from a distance, where he can then whip you away with a quick jab or will pick you up and slam you into the ground repeatedly. If you thought his chain grabs were bad before, they have nothing on how much his tentacles can wreck you. I do a decent enough job taking him down in this clip, but trust me when I say it isn't always this smooth, and I usually die a couple times fighting this form. This is the last optional encounter you'll have against him though, and once you beat him, he'll drop a fully loaded assault rifle for Jill to use. Or if you've loaded up a previous clear, you'll instead get a box that will give you infinite ammo to a gun of your choice instead, but this is a fresh game, so assault rifle for us, which I prefer anyway. Remember to grab your lockpick if you didn't earlier, and you can now access this room as Jill. Again, I swear there's supposed to be grenade launcher rounds in here, but instead you get more mine thrower rounds, which is just fantastic. After getting into the park, you'll come across a couple rooms that can have some randomly chosen enemies in them. This little pawn area usually spawns the hunter gammas from me, which is totally fine. But I'm used to Cerberus spawning in the next room, but oh no. Have I mentioned how much I love this game? So back to the pawn, hunter gammas again, totally fine. Now I'm ready for the hunter betas in this next room, except Cerberus spawns this time, and I make the mistake of letting them get too close to me and I accidentally dodge, which puts them on either side of me, and having enemies on either side of you in a classic Resident Evil game is pretty much death, so... And hey look, there's zombies in the pond this time. So this time, I hear the hunters coming, and I know there's 3 of them, and I hear it walking too, so I wait. Yeah, this room can go screw off. You can pick up some magnum rounds off this body here. I tend not to really use the magnum much in this game honestly, because the freeze rounds are just so much better at handling Nemesis, and it uses less gunpowder, so free magnum rounds are always a nice gift. So we get to this room, and there's this gear puzzle in here that never really made much sense to me, because somehow there's these different colored gears and they affect which fountain patterns are used depending on which pattern you put the gears in, and they can also drain the water somehow, and I'm not really sure how that works, but I'm actually more confused by the fact that you have a limited amount of moves to change the gear positions and you can't just, oh, I don't know, remove the gears and put them into the places you need them to be. They can only be moved to an open slot that's next to them, and I just don't get it. Like, there's so many impractical puzzles for opening things in this series, but this one just feels way more gamey than the rest of them, if that makes any sense. You can walk through this graveyard and you'll actually see zombies rising out of the ground, which is actually pretty cool. You eventually make it to this cabin, which is thankfully stocked with quite a bit of supplies. Crawl through this fireplace and you'll get a bit more explanation into the whole mess with the Umbrella mercenaries and the so-called supervisors. Nikolai also shows up here briefly to offer a bit more vocal insight into the whole thing, but the idea here is that Umbrella sent in these teams of mercenaries with these supervisors working undercover among them to gather combat data on the monsters created by the virus. The outbreak proved much worse than anticipated, which resulted in the teams being pretty much wiped out. And Nikolai's goal here is a selfish one. He wants to escape and will get rid of anyone in his way. He also plans to reap the rewards for being the only survivor returning with the data, which explains why he's been eliminating other survivors, like Tyrell back in the hospital. I mean, this plot thread is alright. It's pretty much a retread of the first game's betrayal by Wesker, since the plot twist in that game was that Wesker had deliberately led the STARS teams into the mansion to gather test data, but it makes sense that Umbrella will pull this stunt again, but on a larger scale, so I'm willing to cut it a bit of slack even if it is a retread. Nikolai gets scared off by another earthquake, and we have a date with the Gravedigger.
What's going on? Whoa! What is that?
The Gravedigger is particularly weak to acid rounds, and so I craft up some of those with the gunpowder B I have lying around. But because I hate myself, I resolve to use up all my mine thrower ammo first before bringing out the acid rounds. Now there is a way to use these lampposts and this puddle of water to electrocute the worm to death, but I prefer to just kill it myself. After it's dead, you can use this ladder to find enemies far worse that I just run past because screw all that. And now we'll be able to leave the park and get to the bridge where we have a seemingly simple choice but one that affects the ending that we get. If we push Nemesis off the bridge, Nikolai will literally be killed by Nemesis and will be able to escape with Carlos piloting the helicopter. However, if we jump off the bridge ourselves, Nikolai will be able to secure the helicopter for himself and will be allowed to escape unless you actually kill him yourself. While I personally think it's fitting that Nikolai should die by Nemesis, jumping off the bridge does lead to the ending that is considered canon, so we go with that. And now we come to the infamous water sample puzzle. I swear everyone hates this puzzle, but I honestly kind of like it. And at least I know how to solve this, unlike the time puzzle in the clock tower that I just always randomly place things until it fixes itself. So yeah, I actually kind of like this puzzle. It's kind of nice.
rescuing you is becoming a full-time job.
Thanks, Carlos. I owe you.
Listen closely, Jill. They're going to launch a missile directly into the city as soon as day breaks.
At dawn? But that's only...
I know. We don't have much time left. We have to split up and find a way out of here. And hey, watch out for that traitor Nikolai.
So we'll have this brief cutscene here, and Carlos drops the bomb. Ha! That Raccoon City is going to be destroyed come dawn. We're pretty much in the final moments of the game at this point. Just a handful of rooms and a couple more fights to go, really. In this room you can get either Drain Demos or Hunters to spawn, I believe. If you're lucky, you'll get the Drain Demos. The thing about this room is, you'll have to re-enter it a couple more times, and it seems every time the enemies respawn. And if you're unfortunate enough to get the Hunters, well, tough luck. We get one final save room that's absolutely loaded with gunpowder, and in the next room we solve a pretty simple puzzle with switches and hot steam to unlock this door. We're going to be going up against the Nemesis soon, so now is the time to prepare everything. And I have a ton of leftover gunpowder, so I make all the freeze rounds I can, which ends up being a freaking lot. I'll make a trip back to where we did the water sample puzzle and get this key activated for later, and then we're off to face the penultimate fight.
Proceeding with operation in treatment room. Please evacuate immediately.
Honestly, this is probably the easiest fight against Nemesis. It's probably because I have so many freeze rounds. Alternatively, you can shoot these valves on the wall to pour acid on him, but I have so much ammo that it's pretty unnecessary. Now that we have that keycard, we can go back and activate this elevator back in the steam room, and down here we'll find some extra grenade launcher rounds, but more importantly, we can use that key we activated earlier to get the rocket launcher. Back to this shutter, we find more zombies in our way, which is great because I have all this ammo to burn at this point. It isn't really classic Resident Evil if I don't spend 90% of the game conserving ammo, and then make it to the last 10 minutes of the game with loads of it left. Because we jumped off the bridge earlier, Nikolai ended up making it to the chopper before us. We can actually allow him to escape by negotiating with him, but he's an asshole, so I shoot him down.
Sorry, but there is no escape from here.
Jill, what happened?
Carlos. The choppers.
I guess this is it then. but I don't want to die in a place like this. This isn't over yet. I'm not giving up, Jill. We still have a chance. Jill, that's it. We've got to find a way out of here, now!
Carlos shows up and insists that there's another way out and runs out the door, but in a few more seconds, the shutter closes, so either he was making his way out and the shutter closed on him, or he made it past the shutter and is now trapped in the facility, so...
All personnel, evacuate immediately.
We end up making it to this room, and a crash pretty much destroys this door, trapping us inside and further enforcing that there's no way that Carlos can follow after us. We find this mega rail cannon in this room, and after pushing in the first battery, which is super finicky, our old pal Nemesis plops down and gorges on another dead tyrant, and transforms into whatever the hell this is. This fight is pretty bare bones, honestly. The idea is to push in all the batteries to activate the rail cannon, and after you damage Nemesis enough, he'll panic and go back to eat more of the tyrant's body to presumably heal itself, but he'll also put himself in the line of fire of the rail cannon by doing so.
Executing quick charge program. Preparing to fire. Warning. System overheating. Enter cooldown mode.
And even after all that, he's still alive. But we get a chance to exterminate him once and for all, and you know, why not? This line makes absolutely no sense, but I love it. If it isn't in the remake, I'll be sorely disappointed. We make for the exit, and there's no way that Carlos... Oh, look, there he is.
It's over, Carlos.
What are you talking about? Don't you hear that? There's a second chopper, and it's here to rescue you.
But who is it? Who could possibly be looking for me?
It doesn't matter. We just have to be there when it lands.
Thanks, you saved us.
I couldn't let you die.
Is it you?
Are you ready to finish this?
It's coming!
Yeah. It's the end.
That's it. Umbrella's going down.
And now we have a rather unfortunate turn of events. It seems that the President and the Federal Council have passed judgment over the civilians of Raccoon City. The President and Federal Council have ruled that the Bacillus Terminate operation is the best course of action for this extreme situation, and have since executed. Based on that fact, Raccoon City has been literally wiped off the map. Current reports have the death toll surpassing the 100,000 mark. Our hearts go out to those poor civilians of Raccoon City.
And that's that. What a classic. Not my favorite Resident Evil, but it was my first, so it does hold a special place in my heart, and hopefully the new remake will do it some justice. We get a little epilogue here, and if you beat the game 8 times, you'll get a new epilogue each time. But I don't have the time or energy to do that right now, and thankfully the internet exists, so here they all are. These are all pretty interesting and lead up well to where characters would later end up in Code Veronica and Resident Evil 4. And hopefully I'll have time to revisit those games as well. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Sayonara, bye bye.